Hey everybody, Corey Longnecker here again for Vice and Villainy presents Foundry VTT, ongoing collection of videos to just kind of show you the cool stuff that Foundry can do in terms of its modules, its add-on modules. I think they did a video during the Gen Con Online this past weekend, and I think there's something like 340 modules that have been created that add into Foundry to do various things. So that's really, really cool. Today we're going to talk about two things. One of them is dice and rolling, and the other one is combat. I'm not going to be going through how to run combat because that's been covered in Encounter Library's really good series of like the basics of Foundry. Basically, I'm just going to continue to do what I've been doing, and that's covering modules that aid in the things that are already baseline of Foundry. And these two kind of tie together really well. So let's go ahead and pop over here to the full browser and go. As you can see, last time we had that spell going on there. I am going to actually delete it because something I'm going to be going through talks about it. And it's kind of distracting, honestly. So let's go ahead and pop in here and knock out a couple of these modules that I've added. So what we're going to be talking about today, I'll start with the dice and the rolling. The first one is called Actually Private Rolls, and it's here. I'll toggle this on so you can see it. Basically what it does is what it says. It hides private GM rolls completely rather than just hiding the result. That way your players don't know when you're rolling, because that's often extremely helpful. Sometimes you don't want them to know that you're rolling. So that's what that does. And then the other one is called Dice Tray. And this one adds a really handy little group of icons you can click down here, normally where the chat window is. And I'll go back there in a second. And you can see you can basically just click on dice. So we'll let this reload and we'll turn this on. And as you can see here, we've got all these extra dice and different things down here. So you can choose how many you want to roll: D4, D6, 8, 10, 12, 20, 2 20s. You can choose whether you want advantage or disadvantage and how many of them you want to roll. Like I want to roll 3 or not how many you want to roll, what bonus or minus you want to add to it. So this is going to be a D8 plus 3. If I want to make 2 of them, 3 of them, you just click on it and it keeps adding it. Oh, you can't quite see the bottom there. Let me do a quick fix of that for you. Okay, sorry about that. I guess the way I have OBS set up, it clips a little bit. So you can see down here now, that you've got a minus. I know it's hard, it's right on the edge. A minus, a number, which is your modifier, so you can either make it go negative or positive. You've got advantage and disadvantage right here, and then the roll button, and you can choose all your dice. So if you want to do, 3d8 plus 3 and a d6 and 2d6, and then you want to roll it, it'll roll it for you. If you want to do just a D, I'm sorry, that's not a D, 2 D20s, that's a D100. If you wanted to do a D20 with advantage, it'll do that. If you want to do a D20 with disadvantage, it'll do that for you too. So it's got all of those in there, and it's just really handy to have those right down there. You don't have to manually type it out. And you can do it that way. And you can also choose whether you want it to be, oh, that's awesome. It's not showing it pop up there. Anyhow, basically when you click here, it gives you the option of public, private GM, blind GM, or a self-roll. So it gives you options there for how you want to choose. So that's kind of cool. That's what that does. And then actually private rolls, and I'll show you this in the configuration just so you can see it. Actually private rolls. Really simple. It's one checkbox. And it does what it says. It enables this to hide private GM rolls unless they are the GM or the one that rolled. So hide your roll. Players don't know you're rolling. Really handy. I use it all the time. So that's actually private rolls. So that basically covers those two things that I use. Now, I know there are modules out there, if you are so inclined, that drop 3D dice on the tabletop. So if you want to have a more like in-person feel, you can go out and grab those, and they tie in really well with some of the dice rolling that's here. I'm not a fan of it. It's just not for me. I don't like the way it kind of clutters up the screen, but that's just me. You might not care, and you might want that physical look to see, you know, a bunch of dice on your tabletop. So you can search through all the Foundry stuff. Just here, let's just go look real quick, because why not? So let's go check on the add-on modules. You can click install module. When this pops up, just type dice. And it's going to give you some options. Dice So Nice, that's the most popular one. Obviously, we had Dice Tray there, but yeah, Dice So Nice, if we look at it, boom. You're going to see just a bunch of physical dice drop down. You can change the way they look. You have a ton of options for it. And if that's what you're into, it's really cool. So I suggest, if you like it, go for it. Dice So Nice. But yeah, so let's take a look at some of the combat stuff next, because that's always interesting. So let me go turn some of these things on that I've gotten. What we're going to talk about here is Combat Effects Tracker, Combat Template Cleanup, Combat Tracker Effect Icon Tooltips, and then a couple more. We have Easy Target, and the last one is way down in the T's, and that is, where are you? Turn marker. Turn marker's down here. So let's go ahead and turn those on. Let that refresh. And we'll start talking about some of the other stuff here. So let's go ahead and start some combat. Oops, sorry about that. As you can see right here, boom, that is turn marker. It shows you very distinctly whose turn it is. And it's really handy. And that's configurable too. So if I go into configure settings, module settings, and let's drop down to turn marker, it's got its own settings, and you can, while we're here, you can animate it. Otherwise it just stays there. Right now it just spins. You can pick the speed if you want it to go faster or slower, but the options within turn marker, you can turn it on or off. You can choose what you want it to look like. There's a red one, bright green. These are just the various different colors. I like this one. If you have a custom one you want to build, you can put that in there too. And choose how big it is compared to your token, and it's by a ratio. So I think 1.5 is pretty good. So announce turns. When it's moves to the next person, it'll drop in chat and say, send a chat message to that person saying it is their turn. And it will also include the token image to do that, to help visualize that, so to speak. And then start marker. So enable start marker. This will place a marker at the location a token started its turn. So this is kind of interesting. I don't use it, but I can see where it's very useful. And basically what it does is, let's say you start your turn by moving. Let's say you use your movement first. After you leave that space, it'll put a marker there. And that lets other people know where you started. It lets the GM know where you started. And it can be very handy. I don't use it because it's not how I operate, but I can see where it would be useful to some people. But that's turn marker. Very simple. really, really great visual reminder of whose turn it is. Often while we're playing online, it's very easy to forget when it's your turn because you're looking stuff up, and it's not that it doesn't happen in person, but sometimes the DM will have like little initiative sheets on the DM screen, and you can kind of see whose turn it is. And this is just a nice way to help visualize that. So that's turn marker. It's great. I love it. I use it all the time. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and use Easy Target. So traditionally built into Foundry targeting, you can right click and hit the target button, and then that targets that player. A really great way is you can also, with Easy Target, you hold the Alt key, and you'll see right up here, it switches to the target button. The other way to do it is to click on that and target it, and you can choose multiple targets that way. But this is great because you can just click and hold Alt and click on who you want to target. So let's grab a couple of, let's just drop some acolytes in here. So let's add them to combat. And you'll see it completely reorders it based on that. So let's say you want to target, let's say well, we'll do it when we get to Everil. We'll wait till it's his turn. Okay. So let's say it's Everil's turn here. He's back here and he wants to target all of these players. He can just hold the Alt key and click who he wants to target. And choose, if I want just those two, I want to add a third or a fourth or a fifth, you can do that. Super handy. So that's Easy Target, and it does what it says. It's very easy. Let's look at the module real quick. I don't think there's any settings for it, but yeah, it's just, that's what it does. So that's really cool. Let's look at one that will tie into this, which is Combat Template Cleanup. Now, this is new. I didn't know this existed until I was just looking through there before I started this video. So it's going to be new to me here, but I can see where it's going to be very useful. So let's say Everil decides he wants to cast a spell, and he's going to cast Fireball because who doesn't love Fireball? And like we talked about last time, we are going to place this measured template. So we're going to cast it, and just like that add-in from last time, it's going to auto-target those people. So let's cast it right here in the middle. And it drops it on all of them. And let's jump back to combat. And we'll see... wow, it annihilated those guys. So Fireball, 36 points of damage, just rained havoc on them. You can see I've killed them all. That's why Fireball is beautiful on low-level enemies. But it's my turn. I've got the template out there. I'm going to click here. And what it says, and this is how it's supposed to work, it focuses on the template. It says, would you like to remove it? It's a really nice way of cleaning up. So like if you have a spell like this where it happens and then it's over, when it's done at the end of your turn, you can say yes, and the template will be gone. Let's say you are like a druid casting Moonbeam, and you want to keep it, and you're going to move it around and stuff. At the end, it's going to ask you, do you want to remove this template? And you can just keep clicking no, and it will stay out there. But it's also kind of a nice reminder that you still have a spell out there, that it's still, not that you don't see it, but maybe you want to switch spells, or maybe, something's happening and you're trying to, maybe you want to cast a different spell your next turn. Well, this is going to remind you, maybe I want to end the spell right now, and just start with it that way. So that is Combat Template Cleanup. And let's see if it has any settings in here, because I just don't know. Nope, it doesn't. But while we're here, let's talk about the next one. Combat Effects Tracker. Tracked resource. Right now, it's set to experience. That's not really what I want to track while I'm in there. What I like to track is hit points. So let's find out where the hit points are. Now, that's minimum hit points. That's not exactly what we want. Temporary max, temporary hit points. You can track all that. Let's see what else. Oh, maybe that is what we want. A lot of things in here. You can track your spells, your all sorts of stuff. What you're proficient in, what your charisma is, your modifier. I don't know why you'd necessarily want to track it, but you could. How much carrying capacity you have, how many death saves you have, how many death saves you failed or succeeded on. Let's use hit point minimum, save changes. Let's jump back into the combat tracker. Where are you? There you are. And let's jump to, so it's C's turn. And if you click on each person, it's going to move you to, it's going to center the map on them. So that's something to know. Let's go ahead and look here. This is showing that they're dead. I don't know why no, I can mark them as defeated, and then it will skip over them during the combat. So they are now defeated. You can see all that. It's C's turn. Let's say she ends up doing something to Everil, and Everil is going to get a status assigned to him. Let's say he gets forgot which one this is. Okay, let's say she does something and he is knocked unconscious. Let me move him up. See him. So you're going to see I've assigned the unconscious status to him. You see it pops up here in the combat tracker, so you can see it. And if I hover over it, and this is what the icon tooltips is, tells you that they're unconscious. So that's really cool. And that's what it does. It adds these things into here to where maybe he's also, maybe he's also sleeping. You know, maybe he got put to sleep. You know, he's in a daze. Nah, let's not do daze. What's this one? He's falling. Okay. Blinded, I'm assuming. Yeah, blind. So he's blinded, he's asleep, and he's unconscious. Okay. He's in trouble. You see him stack up over here. You see him stack up over here. It's nice from a DM's perspective to know what's going on with that. So let's look in here and see what we can do with it. I don't think there was any other option for that. No, there wasn't. So that's what that is. If we look at, let's see. Oops. Forgot that should be on. Yeah, I don't see anything else there to mess with that. So that's what that does. But let's look at it here. Let's just do this because this is always handy. Let's look at Combat Effects Tracker, a simple module that utilizes temporary combatants functionality of the combat utility belt to keep track of temporary effects. So that's what that does. And I'll go back into it and clean it up. Tooltips adds the tooltips to it like we saw. We saw this one too. So combat utility belt. This is one I've talked about before. Really handy. And what it does is auto distribute experience points if that's how you play. Force concentration checks if you're doing D&D 5e. It uses these enhanced conditions, and this is what the combat effects tracker ties into right here, and also the temporary combatants. So that's where that's super helpful. So that's combat effects tracker. Let's add another one in here. Let's say, yeah, let's bring someone else into the fight. Let's bring in another acolyte. See, they got dropped in here. Let's go to the combat tracker. Add them in. They're in the fight now too. And yeah, you can drop stuff on them as well. So just cool little things. Nothing terribly fancy. Let me just bring up real quick. Let me find this and I'll be right back with this because I want you to see it. Okay. So I just saw that the combat effects tracker is built into Foundry now. So it is not it's not an add-on. It's there. So you notice that. But I did look up more of combat utility belt to see how they tie together. And this one's cool. So if you go into combat utility belt, because this one's going to leverage it, you can turn on a couple of settings here. Like I talked about, concentrator, enhanced conditions. This is one that's going to be useful here. And then temporary combatants. That's also going to be useful. But what you'll see here is if I click on Everil and I look at his conditions, he's got a bunch of other conditions now. He's got all of these down here. Blinded, charmed, concentrating, deafened. He's got levels of exhaustion you can use here. Frightened, grappled, incapacitated, invisible, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned. Let's use poisoned. So it's showing him there that he's poisoned. It pops up here that he's poisoned. And yeah, it drives everything. It really drives everything home. Let's switch to his turn. He's poisoned. Maybe he wants to cast a spell, throw the concentration out there. Let's just see what that looks like, just so you can see, because why not? Let's say he casts, let's see, where do I have a concentration spell? Mage Hand is concentration. So he casts slow. So he casts slow on her. He's cast slow. She is slowed. Of course, that didn't do what I wanted to do. Let's try a different one. Here we go. Oh, that's fine. And then let's say it's now her turn. No, we don't want to remove that template because that's still out there. No, we don't want to remove the template. So let's say it's now C's turn. And she's going to get up here, and let's say she's going to hit him. And she's going to hit him with... say she's going to hit her with the glaive. See if she does it. Attacks. It says she misses. Let's try it again. We're just going to keep going until we smack him with it. All right, cool. So she hits him with it. You'll notice what's happened here is concentration has dropped because he took damage. So it automatically drops that. So that's kind of cool. It's just a lot of nice little add-ins, especially for me as the game master. I often find it very difficult to keep track of concentration. Like if I've got multiple spellcasters in my game and I'm not going to be able to keep track of who's got a concentration spell going. I end up, relying on them to be honest about it. And sometimes the players forget too because they're too focused on what they're doing. So it adds just a nice visual reminder that they're concentrating on something, and it's going to force them to do it. So it adds a little icon, it lets you see it. It's just helpful. She also ended the concentration because she killed him. So, but yeah, really cool little stuff. Makes combat a lot easier to track. It makes targeting people a lot easier, and just overall makes it, makes things smoother, more streamlined, a lot easier to deal with. So I hope what you've seen here helps you out and adds to your game. I'll put a description of all of these. I'll put the names of all of these modules that I'm using in the description for you to see. And I just hope that, whatever you're doing, this adds value to your game. And again, things are popping up in Foundry modules all the time. So if there's a new module that, some of these might be deprecated and might be moved to different modules, or the features may be rolled into something else. So keep an eye on that. And also new stuff comes out all the time. So if there's something new that this replaces that's better, shoot me a comment, let me know. But thanks everybody for tuning in, and hopefully this will be helpful. Take care.